Have you guys seen cases like this before?
To be honest with you, we have, but never this big. I don't know that I think you do know the extent. You need to tell us about him and your relationship and the extent.
Am I looking at jail time?
Today?
No, I mean in general.
Probably.
You described him as your best friend.
Yeah.
Tell me, as a best friend, you guys being tight, he didn't disclose anything to you. What was going on?
I can tell you anything you need to know about him.
I'm listening.
Welcome to episode 4 of Operation Stolen Base, the true story behind one of the largest sports memorabilia fraud schemes of all time. In our last 2 episodes, we heard from Cliff Panizich, a former baseball prospect and the man authorities say was the mastermind behind the crime. What originally started as a legit autograph business turned into an easy money-making scheme when Cliff realized he has the uncanny ability to memorize signatures and flawlessly reproduce them. As his hidden talent made him rich, he let more and more people in on the secret, and the less of a secret it became. We'll pick back up with Canfield Detective Brian McGivern. When we last heard from him, he was diligently putting the pieces together in a string of car break-ins. Chapter 4: The Pinch Hitter.
So now that we had all these credit cards and gift cards that we recovered from the hotel and the Blosser car, I start putting emails out to different detectives saying, these are the card numbers, the gift card numbers, these are the credit card numbers, if you guys can track them. What we noticed was people were going in and buying a large amount of sporting equipment. I didn't at that point figure out what exactly was happening, so I put another email out to the area investigators that I think this is somehow, some way sports related, so if anybody could shine some light on this. Once that email went out, Special Agent with the FBI, Tony Sano, contacted me and said, hey, are you working a sports memorabilia case? I kind of chuckled. I said, well, I'm working a theft case with a lot of sports equipment, and I don't know what it's turning into, but there's definitely something here. And I said, what exactly do you have? And he goes, does the name Cliff Panizich ring a bell? Here I am, little detective at Canfield, and I'm talking to the special agent. He's asking me, do I know this Cliff Panizich? So I'm thinking something's about to kick off here. And I said, no, it doesn't ring a bell, but I do have some different photographs of people that are in these stores buying this sports equipment. And he immediately sent me a Bureau of Motor Vehicle picture of Cliff. And lo and behold, that was one of the suspects that I had in a case file that had bought a couple buckets of baseballs.
What put Cliff on the FBI's radar?
From what I understand, Cliff was going around to a lot of underground card games. Agent Sano got some information that when Cliff would lose, he would make statements like, well, I need to get home and make up my money and start signing some footballs or baseballs, something to that effect. How else they got on the radar of the FBI to this day, I don't know.
Even after the FBI took down Mafia boss Lenny Strollo and loosened the mob's grip on Youngstown, the Bureau kept a close eye on gambling operations around the Mahoning Valley. That included underground poker games, which were being frequented by an interesting new player. A young guy, cocky and athletic, who was building a reputation as a high roller. To these other gamblers, Cliff was a welcome sight at the tables. He splashed pots and made bad calls, practically giving his chips away. It was as if he had an endless supply of money. Cue the pinch hitter in the local cops' investigation, a slugger who plays for the feds named Sano.
So the first time I met Special Agent Sano was in the Canfield Police Department. And one of the first things I said to Agent Tony Sano when I first met him, and he came out to the police department, was, listen, I don't care where this case goes, whether it's state or federal. I just want to put bad people in jail. He comes to the department, and I had a little board set up with a bunch of the people that we've identified, April and John Blosser, obviously. And then we had another individual identified by C.J. McCormick. He was in a car dropping off a guy at a local Walmart who was arrested for stealing, 500 baseballs. And he gave information about, hey, C.J. McCormick, he's signing baseballs. And we had some other people identified that were buying the sports equipment, but they really didn't know what they were doing at the time, other than, hey, I'll give you $50 if you take this gift card and go buy me, 400 footballs or something to that effect. So Tony walked in and he said, man, you guys are doing a great job with this. And he said, do you mind if I, just do something with your flow chart? I go, no, not at all. He took the picture of Cliff and he put it right on top. He goes, this is the guy that is in charge of this entire organization.
How did he know that?
He knew that large sums of money were being put into his bank account, and that's when he told me that they were utilizing a platform of eBay and PayPal. When he told me that, I knew in the back of my mind, there's a lot of money here in order for the FBI to be involved in this. I knew that there was a bigger case here, and I talked to one of the prosecutors and I said, listen, I don't know exactly what I have here, but I think that this is going to blow up into like a RICO engaging in pattern corrupt activity case. And they immediately said, call Marty Desmond.
My name is Marty Desmond. I was the prosecutor on Operation Stolen Base. I worked for the Mahoning County Prosecutor's Office when we prosecuted that case. So RICO is the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It was enacted by the federal government to combat organized crime. So when you say RICO, you're generally referring to the federal RICO statute. Sometimes you'll say state RICO, and that refers to the engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity.
The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act was first tested on the Cleveland La Cosa Nostra in the early 1980s, effectively crippling the longtime crime family located a little over an hour north of Youngstown. The feds then put it to use against the heads of the 5 families in New York's famous Mafia Commission trial. The equivalent state charge to RICO in Ohio is called engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity.
Special Agent Tony Sano from the FBI contacted Detective McGivern and indicated to him that they had information that Cliff Panasich was selling fraudulent sports memorabilia. And from there, the investigation really took off. I was the prosecutor on the matter. Detective Brian McGivern worked for the city of Canfield, and it started with him because that's where April and John Blosser were pulled over with the stolen credit cards. When he brought this case to me, I remember the first thing that I remember thinking is, how energetic he was about this case. He just, I remember him saying, there's more to this. Anthony Sano, Tony Sano, is a special agent. Tony was great. He had been in Detroit for a while. He had been in different offices within the FBI. He just had a world of experience.
That guy was the real deal. Very high-speed investigator. He was the son of a retired Marine who was a barber. So if that gives you a little insight on Tony, this guy walked in and he was crisp, clean shaven.
I don't ever recall even seeing a whisker on his face. He was a former, weightlifting champion of some type. And to see him, you would never suspect it.
He was only like 5'4", 5'5", but the guy was larger than life.
He was short in stature, but he definitely commanded respect. you would ask him to go do A, B, and C, and he'd come back having done A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And he would say, well, I know you only asked me to do this, but I figured you probably want this, this, and this too. And like, well, you read my mind, Tony. Yeah, you did.
When I first met him, we had that phone conversation, and he said, okay, I'm going to do some surveillance real quick, and I'll send you an email tomorrow. And I said, okay, that's great. Well, I got into the office about 9:30. I open up my email, and here's an email from Tony. He sent like at 6:10. He had already conducted surveillance on these guys, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is kind of the agent he is. I'm going to go toe-to-toe with him, and I'm going to show him this small-time detective can do just as good a job.
By and large, it was the three of us. I had the assistance of another prosecutor, kind of a second chair, but it was mainly the three of us who did a lot of the legwork on the case.
Who was it that came up with the name Operation Stolen Base?
Not me.
That term was coined by Special Agent Tony Sano.
I was gonna say, when Tony tells you that he's calling it Operation Stolen Base, what's your reaction?
No, I liked it. If it was something stupid, then we would have had words. It was a cool name. I liked it, and I said, yeah, let's go with it.
You're brought up to speed. You got the Blossers. You're brought up to speed on C.J. McCormick. Cliff Panizich has been put at the top of your flow chart. What happens next? What's the next step?
The next step is we start pulling phone tolls from Cliff's phone. Cell phone tolls are basically every phone call that you make or receive from your specific cell phone. We start identifying the phone numbers that are being called to and from his phone, and we were able to identify the people that he was talking to mostly. We noticed that everybody on here had an eBay or PayPal account, so we knew that these guys were all on their own private accounts selling these items.
They had worked with eBay, and eBay was very cooperative. And what they noticed is what Panizich was doing, and these other individuals involved, was that they were using multiple email accounts. They're using multiple PayPal accounts. And then the money was ultimately being funneled into a bank account that belonged to Cliff Panizich. From there, they were able to find all of these other individuals who were involved.
At this point in the interview, we pull up the organizational chart from the prosecutor's file. There's enough faces on the flow chart to fill in a lineup on a baseball team.
I'll start over here with James Serenko. He specialized in fraudulent movie memorabilia. Jason Lenzi actually was a banker here in town, and he is the one who helped show Cliff how to set up the bank accounts.
Jason Lenzi actually had the most to lose and the least to gain. He was helping set up different bank accounts for Cliff.
Why did he get involved? You said he had the least to gain.
It was easy money. Sean Palo was just a kind of a smaller guy. We identified him through text messaging. Joe Malachek actually grew up here in the Youngstown area, and he moved out to Las Vegas with Cliff. Dan Marino also grew up in Austintown. He moved out to Vegas. As he was living with Cliff, he saw how easy it was to sign some sports equipment.
He came back to Youngstown in the Mahoney County area, and he started doing his own forgery.
Did you guys find it ironic that there was someone named Dan Marino in this sports memorabilia case?
Yeah, I guess we did.
You can't make this stuff up.
Dan Martini, he's actually the owner, operator of a local burger bar downtown.
He allowed Cliff to use his name to open up an eBay PayPal store. But when Cliff set that store up, he forgot to change the bank account. I think it was about $5,000 or $6,000 went into Dan Martini's bank account.
Dan takes the money out and kept a portion of it. So that's an example of someone who got wrapped into it. Jason Moore was an individual. He learned from Cliff how to do it. He went out on his own. He did a lot of transactions on his own, more so than these other individuals that we just mentioned.
Jason Lenzi, Jason Moore, Joe Malachak, Dan Marino, James Serenko, Sean Pilo, Dan Martini. We knew this was the group of guys doing this.
There's a whole host of other individuals that we didn't charge because in the interviewing with them, we said, well, are you aware that you're part of this? And they said, what are you talking about? I didn't know anything about this. He asked if he could use my eBay account. he gave me $100. And he would give some bullshit story about why he couldn't use his.
What we didn't know at the time was that there were unwitting people out there that their information was being used. Somehow, some way, Cliff Panizich would get your information. For instance, he dated a girl. He used her personal information, her name, date of birth, social security number, to create a PayPal and or eBay account. And then he would link those accounts either to his bank account or his bank account under his mom's name. We identified an aunt of Cliff's. She had filed a report with the local police department. She got a 1099 in the mail stating that she, made, I think it was upwards of $60,000 on an eBay PayPal site, which she never opened. So when we got that information, we went and interviewed the aunt, and she brought from her back room all this fake sports memorabilia with signatures on it. And she goes, I don't know who's using my address. I don't know who's using my name, but they're using my information, and I'm getting all of these items returned back to my house, and they're demanding payment. Well, that was happening across the United States. So once we found out that he was using different names, we then sent a court order to eBay that says, hey, any bank account that is tied to Cliff Panizich or Rose Panizich, we would like those accounts identified. That's when the case cracked wide open. There were hundreds and hundreds and pages of different accounts that were created on eBay and or PayPal. PayPal and eBay, at the time, they were the exact same company. They were very cooperative. When we finally worded the right court order and the case broke open, I got a call from the investigator, and she says, Ryan, this is the largest domestic case of sports memorabilia in eBay history. And I thought to myself, okay, that's why the FBI is here.
There was over 10,000 transactions, over $1.6 million that we could account for. At that point, the investigation just blossomed from there.
You feel like you're putting this huge puzzle together piece by piece. It was just now that we had all this data, we had to start putting the puzzle together.
Cliff ended up leaving this area and moving to Vegas. And when he was in Vegas, he rented a home, nice house, and he used it basically as his office.
I mentioned to Tony, I go, well, since this guy lives in Vegas now, do we just transfer the case out there? And he chuckled and laughed. He goes, no. He goes, we're going to take this case. This is a good case, and we're going to continue. We were just at the beginning stages of, okay, we know that X amount of money was already identified in his bank accounts from PayPal. We also identified him as having some of these underlinks, and we knew that he liked to gamble. That we knew.
Really looking back, my grandmother's side, my mom's mother, I grew up across the street from them. We lived across the street from them in Austintown. My grandma was definitely a gambler and loved her slot machines and loved poker and everything like that. So, I don't think it's a coincidence how I got tied into the whole gambling realm when I'm playing poker at the kitchen table at age 5. But the first real gambling situation that I distinctly remember where it was a significant amount of money was I had thrown $25 into an online sports book. Just messing around, put in a $5 10-team parlay, which is, astronomical odds to hit. Go back in later, look, and I turned $5 into $3,500. I was 18 years old. You could probably say that's probably what created the monster, so to speak.
And what do they call that?
Beginner's luck. There were nights that I stayed up all night playing poker, having a game the next day. I definitively remember playing at least one game on no sleep. Couldn't keep my eyes open. And then there was another moment in time playing down in Tennessee, and I had a wireless card for my laptop, and I remember playing poker in the team van on the way to a game. So we have a 2-hour trip, and I'm just sitting in the back playing poker. It's no coincidence that as baseball kind of left my life as I got injured and everything like that, I became more and more of a gambler. So it's really all the fact of competition and wanting to compete and wanting to win. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm probably the most competitive person you'll meet. I'm probably the worst loser you'll ever meet. And if you're a sore loser or hate losing, like, how do you fix that? You don't fucking lose. My first 3 weeks in Vegas, I managed to get myself banned from all of Station's casinos from playing blackjack, for counting cards. I got banned at the Riviera, which is no longer there. I got banned at the D. I got banned at the Downtown Grand. So it's all over Vegas. I can't really play blackjack.
Would you say you won more money than you lost?
I would say yes. But again, there's so much money coming in.
How much?
At the peak, across the board with everybody involved, it's probably 50, 60,000 a month. There's so much money coming in and so much money going out, honestly. I'm living a crazy lifestyle. All I did is sell autographs, party, and gamble. So my life looked like start drinking at 8, 9 o'clock, hit the club by midnight, party till 5, 6 in the morning, get home, sleep till noon, work on eBay till 8 o'clock, do it again. I'm going and gambling, partying, fine dining, living the life, limos everywhere, nightclubs. Typically, most of my money always came in Monday morning. By Sunday, I'm probably broke.
This was not someone who was thinking of, my 401k or what I'm going to do when I'm 70 years old and I'm going to retire. He would get money and he'd spend it. He has this impulsive behavior.
We were able to get search warrants and court orders with the casinos out in Las Vegas. They did a phenomenal job giving us information about Cliff. That's another thing that I learned that was really, really interesting to me. They were able to tell what type of player he was, what type of gambler he was, and they were able to show, the loss.
There was stories upon stories of his gambling escapades where he'd go and gamble for days on end and lose.
There's moments I've lost 25,000 in a night. I've lost over 20.
Okay, walk me through that.
No, I mean, there's so many stories. There's so many times where I would have spent an entire weekend betting sports, which is was my go-to and felt like profitable to me, making 10, 15, 20,000, going in, cashing my tickets, and not being able to make it to the front door, walking out with nothing. Really the big losses happen because it's refusing to lose. A small loss turns into a big loss because you refuse to take the loss and just leave.
That was his addiction.
Rose Panizich, Cliff's mom, and according to authorities, the second highest person in Cliff's operation.
I mean, just like any other addiction, cigarettes or alcohol or drugs, gambling is an addiction too. He was gambling probably all the time. Yeah, it was out of control.
Did you ever get worried seeing that lifestyle?
Yeah, I was always worried.
Would you say that at that point in time he was spiraling?
I guess I would say that, yeah. Spiraling, yeah.
Yeah, there was a moment, summer 2014, I totaled my truck on Las Vegas Boulevard. I blacked out drunk. I had started drinking at like 9 or 10 o'clock, went to a pool party on the Strip at night, a night pool party. Blacked out, hit a palm tree. Totaled my truck, cracked the frame of my truck, so you can imagine how fast I was going. I don't know how fast I was going. It was like 2 a.m. on Las Vegas trips. There's cars everywhere. There's pedestrians everywhere. How I hit nobody, I don't know. Came to afterward, was able to drive the truck into a parking deck on 3 wheels. 1 wheel wasn't spinning. Drove it into a parking deck, walked away unscathed, like a bruise on my hip. I'm talking airbags went off, smoke everywhere, and I don't even get in trouble. By the time the police get there, I'm not in the vehicle, so all I get charged with is leaving the scene of an accident. And I thought I had a wake-up call, a moment of realization there where I'm like, this is where this needs to stop, needs to slow down. And that lasted like 4 days till the next weekend and back at it again. So from 9 or 10 o'clock at night through 5, 6 in the morning, I drank and partied, slept till roughly 11, 12 o'clock, woke up, all eBay work until 8 or 9 o'clock again, sitting there with a stack of 500 photos, racking out autographs, buckets of 200 baseballs signing autographs.
Cliff's problem was that he got greedy. If he would have kept this at an amount that maybe would have flown under the radar, he probably never would have been caught.
Special Agent Tony Sano and I drafted the search warrant affidavits. I shipped them over to Las Vegas, so now it's getting ready to be go time.
It's late 2014 in the gambler's paradise of Las Vegas. Riding the rare high of a winning gambling streak, Cliff sees an opportunity. He invites an old friend named Bobby to Vegas in hopes of buying Bobby's huge and wholly authentic memorabilia collection. Cliff tells me this was part of his endgame, that he was planning to stop the fraud scheme and go legit. Whether that's actually true or just something he tells himself all these years later is unclear.
Really, at that moment, it seems like life couldn't be any better. You know, I'm living in a $600,000 house. The entire house is filled with memorabilia. I just went on the biggest sports betting run of my life where I made the $110,000, which gets me in line with Bobby to do this transaction where I bought out his authentic memorabilia collection. So he comes out to Nevada. I was going into the Christmas season. In my mind, I felt like if I bought this collection, resold it, there was probably opportunity to go legitimate.
Yeah, but why go legitimate when illegitimate's so much easier?
Because legitimate doesn't carry prison time.
We jump on a plane, flew to Las Vegas, and Cliff lived in a suburb of Las Vegas in Henderson, Nevada. My heart was pumping. We finally pull up in front of the house, and I've looked at this house hundreds of times, and I'm thinking to myself, finally, we're taking this case down.
It's 8 a.m. December 1st, Monday, December 1st. I go downstairs in my shorts and some socks and open the door, and there's like 14 people standing out front, a combination of detectives, and I see the big FBI letters on a bunch of guys' jackets. I knew. I knew what they were there for.
On the next episode of Operation Stolen Base,
I was looking for a way out.
Just so you know, there's 5 search warrants being conducted right now.
A lot of things went through my head in that second. My life's over. I could run.
You can't not go to prison for doing this. You're going to have to go to prison.
He was shaking in his boots, but he didn't shake long.
so what happens next?
Big shit show is what happens.
This episode of Operation Stolen Base was written by me, Johnny Chechitelli. Story editing, mixing, and sound design by Kevin Skuback. Produced by Vince Tornero and myself. Our theme song is Chasin by the Vindys.
That was an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company in co-production with Wessler Media. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave a review. It goes a long way in helping more people find Operation Stolen Base.